Hello YouTube. Today we're going to be putting together a very cost-effective starting mix for your seedlings. I know in the first video I said I wasn't going to do any DIYs or this wasn't a how-to or anything like that, and that still applies to the stuff that I do for the house renovation, because I'm not a contractor. I don't have any expertise in that field, so anything I would say would just be guesswork, more or less, along with a little bit of researched ideas. But as far as growing and planting and gardening and farming, that sort of thing, I do feel that I have enough knowledge, enough expertise, enough experience to share some ideas. And this is one that's really simple and it's really easy, and it's going to save you some money if you have a lot of plants to start. Now, if you're just doing like maybe 1 or 2 trays worth of seedlings for your small home garden plot, then this may not be the best idea for you. The small 12-quart bags of Jiffy seed starter mix, you can get those for around $5 or less this time of year, just about anywhere. And those are great for small batches of seeds. But if you're going to be doing a lot, like I do somewhere around 500 to 600 seedlings every year between selling seedlings on my farm stand or planting in my garden in the various growing plots that I have. I go through a lot of starter mix, and that $5 for 12 quarts adds up pretty quick when you start getting into that kind of volume. So what we're going to be doing today is basically making that mix ourselves with some peat moss and some vermiculite. The cost breakdown comes to the 12 quarts is a little less than half of a cubic foot of soil. So it's a cubic foot of soil is about 25 3/4 quarts per cubic foot. So 12 quarts is a little bit less than that. So you'd need a little over 2 bags to equal 1 cubic foot of starter mix. And that would be around $12. We'll say $12 a cubic foot. This is a 3 cubic foot bag of peat moss, and I also have another 2 cubic foot bag of vermiculite. So that's going to equal 5 cubic feet worth of volume. So that would be 5 times 12. $60 quarts of starter mix. So that's it breaks down to about, to equal this amount of the Jiffy mix, you'd be spending over $50, and this cost me altogether $30. So you're saving $20. You do have to put in a little bit of work to it, which is fine. I mean, if you're homesteading or doing anything and you're not interested in working to save some money, then you're doing it wrong, in my opinion. Because everything that you can do manually, that the company that's selling you the product doesn't have to do, is going to save you money. So when we're interested in saving money, we're got to roll up our sleeves and get to work. So some of the tools that I'm using are pretty simple. I just have a scoop that I made out of a coffee can, box knife, a wood block, you'll see what I need that for, gloves. These you don't have to. I mean, I'm not afraid of getting my hands dirty, but when you're sifting the vermiculite and that sort of thing, it can get real abrasive on your hands. It can kind of really tear up your skin. So it's more to protect the skin than to keep my hands clean. And this is one of my sifting trays that I use in my sifter for compost. This is a 1/4 inch screen. This is when I'm really trying to get fine sifting. Normally I just use a 1/2 inch screen, and it does the job good enough. We're going to use this first to sift the peat moss to get the big twigs and sticks and that sort of thing out. You don't have to use peat moss. You can go with the coconut coir, which is more environmentally friendly if you're worried about that. I use it a lot, but to get it in the volume that I need it's not as cost effective as peat moss yet. I know it'll probably get there once the demand gets up, and it's all about cost, supply and demand. Once the demand gets higher than the peat, then the price differential will change. But for now, I'm sticking with peat moss. I usually only use peat moss in my starting mixes. I don't like it in any of my potting mixes or out in the garden. I think it's too aquaphobic. Once it dries out, and it's very difficult to get rehydrated if you have a large pot worth of potting mix, which some of my plants, like my potatoes and that sort of thing, are typically in a large pot. So in my potting mixes, it's just straight compost and topsoil, or that's basically what I put in there. It's compost and topsoil. It works just fine. You don't need peat moss or coconut coir or any kind of those other fillers in a potting mix for most of your plants. Then once we do a rough sift of this, just to get the big chunks of sticks and that sort of thing out, then I'm going to switch around to this, which is about an 1/8 inch screen. And this is an old fireplace screen that I'm using. And it's just the perfect size to get a nice, real fine texture out of the peat moss, which is what you're shooting for in your starting mix. You want a starting mix that is going to be really fine, real fluffy. It's going to hold moisture but not stay wet. So you want it to be able to drain, which is where the vermiculite comes in. And you want it to be able to encapsulate the seed to keep that moisture up against the seed until the seed is able to absorb it and then germinate. And then once it germinates, then you can transplant it into a potting medium or a transplanting medium of your choice. So we want it nice and fine so it can hold that seed real nice and cozy while it's in there. If you had sticks and twigs and big chunks and that sort of thing, you get air pockets between the seeds, especially when you're talking about teeny tiny seeds. It's kind of hard for you to get nice and good soil contact on that seed. So that's the purpose of the really super fine screening. And it takes a little bit of time, but once you do it, if you do it in the right volume, if you do it like now, I have seeds on their way. I don't have them ready yet, but I know I'm going to have them very, very soon. So I need to have this ready for when they show up and I can start throwing them in the flats and getting everything seeded. So a little time I do now will save me time and money later on. So with that said, if you find this useful or find this interesting, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like it, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss an update on the channel. I really appreciate you guys coming by and checking us out. So let's get started. Alright, so we've just finished filling this tub up. It's an 18-gallon tub, and as you can see, it's pretty much full all the way to the top. So we have maybe 17 gallons. If it was 18 gallons full, that alone is 72 quarts of peat, and which is something that I didn't account for or forgot, that this is compressed. So this is 3 cubic feet it's compressed into 3 cubic feet. So there's actually a lot more volume in here once it's broken up and sifted. So this one 3 cubic foot bag of peat, which is $11, is going to provide pretty much all the starting mix you're going to need, unless you're doing just a massive scale operation, in which case you probably already know what you're going to do for your seedlings. You either buy a pallet worth of mix or whatever you're doing there. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this and I'm going to fine sift it into my final container. This is a 35 gallon container, and then I'll go back again to doing the rough sift, because if you can look, there's still some large bits of organic material in there. You can see it's still got some chunks, and you can see some, I want it a bit finer than this. It's already pretty fluffy, it feels really good, really nice, but I want it finer than that, even still, for my starting mix. And all the stuff that I'm sifting out is just going into my other bin here, which will get incorporated into either my compost pile or used for mulch here, there, and everywhere, or whatever else I'm going to do with it. So it doesn't go to waste, it gets used. So we're going to get set up for that and start sifting it again. Okay, well, I've just finished up sifting half of the bag to its final stage, and just about filled up this container. So I'm going to stop, and I'm going to start doing the rest, fill the rest of the container up with vermiculite. That gives me a nice ratio, and I don't run out of room. So what I'll probably end up having to do is get another container to do the rest of that, or I can just leave it and do it when I need it. But I'd rather do it now so I have it when I need it, so I don't have to stop doing what I'm doing to go through this process to get back to seeding. Because once things start getting seeded, I want them to just be seeded. And I won't have to stop in between and do stuff to prepare to seed again. So let me just show you how this is coming out. Now you can see how fine it is. It's nice, light, fluffy. You can see it's kind of has the consistency, the feel of kinetic sand almost. You can squeeze it and it forms a shape, but then you can just crumble it away. That's exactly what you want. So next step is going to be to get the vermiculite sifted into here. I'm going to do about half the bag, since half the bag of peat moss is gone. I'm going to do half the bag of this. Now there's no real strict or stringent ratios involved, just however you want your mix to end up. What this stuff is going to do is it's going to help prevent compaction, help with a little bit with moisture retention, and it just works really. You could even use this by itself as a seed starting medium, but I prefer to just mix it in with this. And the reason I'm sifting it, it already seems pretty fine, but again, every now and then you get a nice big chunk of this stuff, and I just want a nice even consistency all around of everything that goes in this. So, and this is where your gloves and the block of wood come in handy. So I'll show you what you can do with that, so you don't waste any of this. Even with the big chunks, you still get to use them. You just got to crush them up. So you just take this block of wood and go like this, and it just falls right through. And you find the bigger ones, smash them through there, and everything ends up being nice, even, consistent size. So I'm going to get started on this, and I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. so we're done. I went ahead and I had to go get another tub so I could finish it all up and get the whole thing prepared and ready to go. And pretty much almost filled up 2 of these 32-gallon tubs of soil. I'm guessing I would say maybe 25 gallons each, because it's probably about 5 gallons, maybe 27, I don't know. It's just shy of 30. So all together, there's maybe 60 gallons of soil here. So there you have it. For $30, you get 60 gallons of starting mix versus 6 bags. So, you know, saves you quite a bit of money, and it almost pays for itself in a way once you figure it all out, because I think you ended up making more bags than what you would have been able to buy for the Jiffy Mix. And again, if you only need a little bit, the Jiffy Mix is perfectly good stuff. I've used it before and it works really, really well, and I have no issues with it at all. And it's a good price for a small amount. Now, next step would be to get the flats filled and the seeds seeded, but I gotta wait for the seeds to arrive. They should be here any day now. Let me know in the comments if this is something you'd like to see more of. I have a lot of budget saving tips for growing and gardening and farming and that sort of thing, because I pretty much exist on a very, very tight budget. So everything I do is a cost benefit analysis to it. So if you like to see more tips or anything like that, leave a comment, let me know. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you later.